to the Hall F as well, where we have most of the gathering joining in. So for the ones who's just joined in, thank you so much for joining us for Global Investors Meet in West Karnataka 2025, where we are reimagining the growth. Ladies and gentlemen, this session which we have is going to be very, very interesting, and it has got its own unique way of getting executed. Before I introduce you to our speakers, moderators, and all, one important announcement. Today evening, we've got the dinner, which is hosted by Small Scale Industries and Public Enterprise Minister, and we would want you to attend that. But before that, we have the SME Connect Awards ceremony, where we will be celebrating the innovation and excellence. And that's happening at Plenary Hall, 6 p.m. Yani ke is session ke baad, we would want you to head to Plenary Hall because we've got some entertainment lined up, and at the same time, we have some rewards and recognitions. Now, without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to a wonderful session where we have prominent speakers who's made a mark for themselves and also work towards the betterment of others, from diverse paths to a common goal. There's a session, and this will be moderated by a founder and CEO of Ink Talks, a platform that showcases innovative ideas and stories. She is a curator and host of the Ink Conference, is passionate about discovering and amplifying new voices and perspectives. She has worked with numerous thought leaders and innovators. Her work has been recognized for its impact and influence. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the founder and CEO of Ink Talks. Please put your hands together for Lakshmi Praturi. Lakshmi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Pleasure to
Vasu.
have you here. She will be the moderator, ladies and gentlemen, and she will be introducing to all our speakers. Once more, big round of applause to Lakshmi.
Thank you. You know, sometimes I get these amazing phone calls. Somebody calls me and says, Lakshmi, I have a very important thing I want to ask you. I said, okay, what is it? We really need you. I said, oh, really? Okay, what do you need? He says, do you know so-and-so? Can you introduce me to her? So I'm like, you are using me to get somebody else, but you're not interested in me. So I make a lot of joke about this. But jokes apart, the coolest part of my job is to meet amazing people from all over the world. If I had all the money in the world, somebody would say, what would you do? I say, I would travel and meet interesting people, and that's exactly what I do. And I call myself a people collector and connector, because I think that's the best job in the world, because you'll never run out of having a job, because there are always amazing people and there's always amazing ways to connect them. So what I thought is today we'll bring to you, as we are talking about diverse fields somebody may choose. Here we are in Invest Karnataka. The conversations are around how you should invest, how the industries should grow, how different countries should come. And what are we doing here? Why are we talking about diverse areas, etc.? Because the biggest investments we need to make in Karnataka or across the globe are investments in our people. And we are interested in the people and how to have people think differently for this new millennium, because we are in a choice economy. We are in an experience economy. We are in a shared economy, which is very different from an industrial economy. So what we wanted to do today is to go through the journeys of three different people. What can we learn from them? And the common goal is, how can you be the best version of yourself? Because that's the best gift you can give to the world. Forget about everybody else. You know, put your oxygen first before you take care of everybody else. So how can you be the best version of yourself? So I always like starting with a story. So I'll tell you a little story of this little girl who goes to a coffee shop. These are the days in which there were no cell phones. So she calls somebody and says, I want to mow the lawn. I want to do this for you. How much money will you pay me? And then she's listening, and then she says, but then I can really do the job for half the price. And then obviously the other person says no, and then she says, but I'll give you this, she's offering every possible thing, and the other person keeps saying no. And she puts the phone down, And the shopkeeper asked her, what are you looking for? She said, I was making a call to somebody to see if that person will hire me for doing odd jobs. The person has somebody already, so she doesn't want to hire me. And she's beaming, she's laughing. And then he says, like, she just rejected you. Why are you so happy? She says, I am the one who does all the odd jobs for her. I was just testing to see if she would hire somebody else for half the money. And she's saying no, that means she really likes me. And the reason I love this story, it's relevant for today, is that the biggest competition you have for you is yourself. And the biggest friend you have for you is yourself. So as long as you know that and not depend on everything else, I think that's the biggest investment we need to make. So with that, I'm going to do my duty as the person who knows really cool people and invite the first cool person I know. I'm not going to go into a big description. I think it's like people say Oprah and people know, so I'm just going to say Kiran Rao and everybody will know. Please. So Kiran, we spent lot of time recently together in the US because Kiran's movie Lapata Ladies was India's entry to the Oscars. So we were on a road trip across America showcasing the film, etc. And I was just a groupie going along, inviting all my cool friends to every screening. So, you know, this is your second directorial endeavor, so to speak. And you are from Malleshwaram, you know, regular, nice neighborhood girl, and you don't have any film background, and where did this start for you, like, of being in the films, and what gave you the first break, you know, coming from Bangalore, where I'm sure you had to be either an engineer or a doctor, and so where did that diverge? How did this thing of being a filmmaker start for you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Lakshmi. I think for me, my journey has been quite privileged because I came from a family which privileged education over everything else. I had parents who encouraged me from the very beginning to stand on my own feet, and their emphasis really was, you know, be independent. Whatever you do, don't depend on us, which I feel was great advice at a time when most girls were being told, you know, how to look for the most eligible match. Right, and yeah. My dad was very much like, okay, so when are you going to get your college degree and master's? You're not going to do a master's, which is incredible luck and privilege. And I think it was after I finished, I was in school very drawn to the arts. I liked writing and music and performance. I used to do a lot of acting in school and in college. And somehow I came from the generation when either you studied engineering or medicine or finance. Management was the whole new thing back then. So I kind of fancied that maybe I could work in economics, but like developmental economics. So sort of economics in the social sector. And so I did an econ degree, but somewhere at the end of that, I realized that, you know, the pull of the arts was too strong. What really then struck me was that there was a choice here. I knew that there was not a very steady, I think, career ahead of me. The film industry was a very, very opaque kind of whole sort of world at that point. I was studying in Calcutta, and I did my college in Bombay and my master's. So then before I did my master's, I kind of talked to my parents and I was like, I want to do my master's in communication, in film. And my parents were like, okay, I mean, we know nothing about this. You're on your own, basically. We'll pay your fees and things like that, but you're on your own. And I was fortunate to get into Jamia and then did a degree in it, which really opened up my sort of world. to the power of cinema. I didn't grow up around cinema. I grew up around photography and performance like theater, music. And here was this whole world of image making. So it was you know, I realized that I want to do film, but I want to also work in the space where film can, in some ways, speak to the problems of our times. Films that can be, you know, touch people, be relevant beyond just entertainment. And so that's how I did my degree. And then I came to Bombay, which is a whole other story because I didn't know anyone there.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years before I could find my footing in the industry.
Yeah.
And just worked my way to making my first film as an AD, which was Lagan,
Yeah.
in 2000.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, you have to do your time, right? You are an AD, then you have to be something else. What was the movie? Is it Dil Chahta Hai? I think where you're in like one background where they come to the hotel where that girl is, he's trying to hide from the girl and you come in. So like there's this Kiran somewhere in the back there, you know. And so you have to put in your time. So tell me a little bit about, you know, we only look at the glamour, we look at the end of it. Like here you are, you know, walking the lanes in LA and showing your film, etc. But there is that AD thing, that walk-on part thing, etc. Tell me a little bit about how you keep yourself motivated when you're in a stage where nobody recognizes you. So is it the kind of friends you have? Like, what is it that keeps you going?
You know, just to backtrack, when I got a job as an AD, this was also a time when there weren't that many women in the industry at all. I was lucky to do this film Lagan, where there was the second AD, the third, we were two third ADs, and we were both, three of us out of a four-person team were women. And we were, you know, unlike what people think about the industry, we had the best experience working with a largely male crew. We were given a lot of respect. We were taken very seriously. And that, I think, made me realize that, look, there is space for us here in this industry. And I need to work to bring more women on board. I worked for many, many years as an AD before I wrote my first film, which was Dhobi Ghat. I had started working with Amir Khan Productions by 2005, 2006. And I realized that one of the things that happens to most women creators is that, like women in most fields, we have so many other demands on us and expectations of us that just being purely, you know, sort of dedicated, a filmmaker is often not an option.
Correct.
I kind of got married and was trying to have a child, and I was writing my film at the same time and made my film at the first film at the same time as when I was having my son. And I think you know, because I've had a long gap between the two films, and a lot of people ask me why. And honestly, of course, it's partly choice. I wasn't quite ready to make my second, and I really was interested in spending time with my son. But I was continuously working. I was writing right through. I was producing Dangal and Secret Superstar and a whole bunch of other films that we made. But I think I'm only admitting to myself now how much sort of women feel and are kind of given the responsibility of, you know, raising your children, looking after your home, and then having to do your career at the same time.
Right, yeah.
It's more often than not a very solitary job, raising your kids. Very rarely do you get a super, you know, sort of supportive and equal partner. And so the 10 years that I spent between the two films was a lot of that, you know, trying to find it within myself to do everything.
But the thing that's interesting is, even though Amir is also an equal partner, and you have help and all that stuff, you, women, take it upon themselves to be there. If Amir was going and doing a film, he's not worried about what's happening to the kid. But if you have to go, you feel without anybody asking you.
Exactly.
So some of the times I feel that it's something
It's
self-imposed.
conditioning.
It's a conditioning.
It's conditioning. I mean, over time you realize how much of what we feel is our free will and choice is millennia of conditioning.
Yes, yeah.
It's not new. And that women are nurturers are something that we've, of course, sort of like subconsciously taken, on as our primary goal, and often we are not, we feel the need to kind of be able to multitask in a way that men don't.
Right,
They also have been taught to be just career oriented, and that's its own sort of burden and yoke that men carry. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I've been surrounded by people who've supported me, and I think I've realized going along that I really would like to work with a lot more women, push a lot more women in the industry. And now I have a company of my own, so I'm sort of doing a lot more kinds of films, a lot more kinds of work. I'm trying to make my own work a priority in my own life.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll make another film soon.
No, I mean, I must say, like, one of the big eye-opening thing for me was I was traveling on business once, and my son had a fever. And I was calling literally every 20 minutes saying, is he okay? Did you call the doctor? Did you do this? And at some point, my husband got so irritated. He said, don't you think I can take care of our child just like you do? The part of the thing is that you feel only I can do it. He doesn't know anything. So he said, stop calling. Do your meetings, get it done. So that was a big eye-opener for me that I am the problem. He's not the problem. And, and you're moving into that, the movies that you make, you have a very evolved male and female characters. So it's not that there's the bad men and there is this poor women. There is shades of gray in everything, especially the latest one being Lapata Ladies. I mean, that husband character was the most endearing for me in the film, of this guy who's, so in love with his wife, but, left her behind, sort of. So tell me a little bit about when you're writing, is that something you naturally do to make sure you show the duality in characters? Because it's so easy to fall into stereotypes,
Yeah, with Lapata Ladies, actually, we had a wonderful script in what Biplab Goswami had written. He's a man, but he's very passionate about gender equality and, women's empowerment. And I loved the story. I loved the script, but I wanted to add more shades to these characters, especially the women. And so we brought on this wonderful writer called Sneha Desai. She's the primary screenwriter. And one of the things that Sneha and I used to talk about when we were developing the story from Biplab's script was the fact that the women that you see or the men that you see often in films are usually either, okay, this is the good guy, the bad guy, and women are either,
the mean mother-in-law or the
mean. So there are so many stereotypes that we tend to sort of fall into when we make films. And this was an opportunity really to show a big spectrum of characters. Yeah. So you have, even the mother-in-law, for instance, and the grandmother-in-law, having what we often see in TV serials like a Saas-Bahu kind of antagonistic relationship almost, or power dynamic to begin with. But how, there are ways in which you can diffuse that, and women...
And you end up saying, hum dono dos ho sakte hai kya?
Exactly.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
So how solidarity is just that one step away, the way that women can support each other is something that is within reach, So we wanted to offer simple solutions to very old age problems that we have in, especially in very conservative rural households. And of course, the two lead characters were great fun for me, the women. The vulnerable, innocent girl has actually the longest and most sort of interesting arc to her character because she grows the most. But the male character, I think, is one of the most endearing, like you said, and unusual for Hindi films because he's heroic without, you know, beating up any villains or,
Yeah.
you know, he's just heroic because he's so passionate about the woman that he loves. He's so ready to do the right thing by her and so vulnerable. I think that's what makes him the most, you know, heroic in my eyes. So it was
Yeah.
fun because we could really create all these different kinds of characters.
So one of the things that was great about the movie is it had many social messages without being a message film. It was a movie we had fun with, you watched, etc. And one of the things actually both Amir and you talk a lot about is doing these focus groups and getting audience involved in the film, right? So when you made the film, you showed it, you had audience respond. So tell me, when you did the focus groups, did that change the film in any way?
Yes, we actually had a lot of test screenings, and the first test screening was quite worrying for us because nobody was laughing. And it took a long time before people realized, oh, this is a light film, it's a comedy, we can laugh. And it took me a long time of, you know, sort of sitting with the edit to realize that it was because we had a song at the very beginning of the film, which was about the girl leaving home and going to her in-laws' house. And it had a kind of a melancholic tone, a bittersweet tone, in which the girl, you know, is sort of talking about how she's worried about the new life that she's going to go and embrace. And that kind of made everybody a bit like worried about this girl from the beginning. So the tone and the pitch was just not comedic. And so I actually re-edited the first 10 minutes entirely and changed the film. And that was all because of audience reactions and feedback. And I feel that that's a real advantage because when you want to make a piece of communication that is broad, that you want to sort of reach a lot of people, it's really worthwhile testing it on different kinds of people. And it's not necessary that you take all their feedback because at the end of the day, it is an artistic medium. But some feedback can totally change the fate of what you're doing. And I feel in our case, it was the case for sure.
So how do you decide what your next thing is? Now everybody is curious what you're going to do next. And how, because one of the things you said when we were together in LA is, I want to go back and just take some time off and be by myself and think. So what is next for you?
So what's next for me is actually between the 2 years, that long kind of 2 films, the long sabbatical was a writing sabbatical. So lots of projects that I was developing then sort of coming to the fore now. Next up, I actually have a supernatural film that I want to make. I also have another sort of comedy. It's again about 2 women, and there's another dark kind of noir film. So there's a bunch of different projects, but this supernatural film is what I want to make next.
Great. So one of the things, you know, to invite our next guest, I want to say that one of the things in your films and one of the things we talk about is the arc of a character, like that young girl who goes and what she goes through from not knowing anything to, you know, the evolve. So the next speaker I want to invite is somebody who had that arc of, she was someone who went to US in her 40s with husband and 3 children. And when her mother-in-law asked, why are you going there? She said, I'm going there to create jobs, not take jobs. So I will actually have my own business. And that was her statement to go to US. And she's someone who's tried her hand at being an ice cream truck owner, gas station owner, vending machine owner, all kinds of things, and really someone who has taken on finally to food. And when I first met her in 2005-06 in my Always Collecting People, I heard about this woman whose food was available in all mainstream stores. And I said, oh, I have to meet her. I met her, and her business was $2 million. And I was like, wow, somebody who built a $2 million business out of Indian food. And today, she built a $100 million business out of her brand. And she's here to be with us. Her name, Suki's, is in every store in US. The Indian food is in every American table because of Suki. So with that, I would love to invite Suki onto the stage. Suki, take. No. So to know Suki's popularity, last time we were flying back together, and we randomly started talking to somebody who was sitting next to her in the waiting room. And he was of American guy of Chinese origin, and we were chatting with him. And I said, oh, you know who she is? Her name is Suki. The guy immediately says, you are in my fridge. You are in our freezer. And we have like, so this is Suki Singh.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I'm sorry. I lost my voice yesterday, so please excuse me for the harsh voice.
So Suki has been to Greece and Turkey, and this is the third country in her trip. Obviously, she partied a lot over there and lost her voice. But that's okay. Even with the husky voice, her voice very loud, and she makes huge impact. So Suki, I wanted to ask you, you went to US, unlike most of us who went to go to school, etc. You went to actually start a business, and you started catering from home, and you actually had your own deli, where you were selling food from the deli, doing pretty good. But something happened that made you decide you were not going to do a deli, and you told me one of the most famous lines that's become my motto right now. So tell us that story.
So going there, of course, the first thing is you have to settle down, and you have, so we had some money. We bought a deli in Oakland, in San Francisco, and it was doing okay. And my main consideration when my husband and mine, when we bought it, was that one of us needs to be home to see the children off to school, and one of us needs to be home when the children come back. And so this lunch place in Oakland fitted in, and we bought it. And here it was doing good. Then we had the Loma Prieta earthquake, and all the businesses around us and the customer base we had paid for broke their leases and left. And then it was like, we were new to business, hadn't done it before, and said, so okay, so the buildings will come back and the people will come back, but they don't. New places open up, and who wants to come to a place which hasn't put money into it to look fresh? So then we just, crime went up. We just sold something we had bought for close to 200,000. We sold for 60,000 and got out. But that place, I call it my business school because it taught us all that we should not do. It was a business school which we paid for in whatever we paid for there. And that's how I started off over there. And my husband was in the Indian Air Force. We were posted to England a few years ago. And there he would want Indian food every night. I like cooking, but I don't like spending too much time in the kitchen. So I would just make these sauces and keep them in my fridge and go to Oxford Street or wherever for shopping or go out with friends and come back half an hour before he came and quickly made food and put it on the table. So this came to my help over there. When I was there, I started making these sauces and put them on the counter, and they started selling. And the main reason I did that was, I found all our kids were getting off cooking Indian food because it was so, they looked at a cookbook, the 14 ingredients, well, the cookbook was shut and they were not going to make any Indian food. So I made these one-step sauces that you could put the sauce, put your meat or vegetables and water and cook it, and in 10 minutes you would have a curry. And that started selling over there.
And something that Suki said that really stayed with me was that when she sold the deli and started going to farmers markets and things like that, she said, I don't want to be at a place where I'm waiting for the customer to me. I will go to where the customer is.
That's the biggest lesson I learned when I bought the deli. I learned that I wasn't going to go pay get a location business where I'm paying rent and standing costs, and I wasn't going to be in a place which restricted me. And if the weather is bad, your customer didn't walk in through the door, I would be going out and getting my customer. That was big. And of course, I wasn't in a retail place anymore, so rents were 1/3 or wherever if you go into a commercial area. And yeah, so that was the second business lesson I learned.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, some of the things actually that I learned from Sukhi is that she was very innovative in the way they did business. They bought a dry cleaning business, which wasn't really that great, but they used the back of the dry cleaning business, which was open to store all the cooking stuff, etc. So very innovative, even if things are not working, how can I use it? And the thing that really struck me, Sukhi, I would love for you to tell is, you always forward integrate, like you were selling to Marriott, for example, they were just buying sauces. And then you said, why don't you take this and this? So when you get into a relationship, how do you expand it? Like what were you seeing that made you go from just selling a couple of sauces to opening a huge business with them?
You know, you have to have your eyes and your ears open. So when opportunity comes, you need to grab it. So this one lady called me one day and said, I heard you have a tandoor, and I want to do lunch for all my employees. She was the general manager at Hewlett Packard, a cafeteria. And do you have a tandoor? I said, I don't have a tandoor, but can I come and see what you do? So she said, sure, come in. And I went in and I saw her standing on this big brazier, roasting onions and all. And so I said, so why are you doing this? She said, oh, these people can never get it right. I said, you just buy my sauces. And from putting 8-ounce, the sauce in an 8-ounce bottle, I immediately went out and I started putting it in 5-pound bags for them. And then I wrote the whole program. So then I thought, you know, I only have 3 items, so that's not going to give her enough to have a full Indian meal. So quickly, I created another 6 spice mixes and had a whole program written to her for her, tandoori chicken, dal makhni, everything, and all the spices I put in bottles, and had a whole program for them. And when I found them, I was too new to the country. I didn't know there was anything like this, that you have these big companies like Oracle, Sybase, Hewlett Packard, and have these cafeterias. So their food services are contracted out to other food companies. So then I learned that this is a nationwide phenomena, and you have got all these big companies all over the country. So from then on, I just concentrated on going to these companies because got approval for their, as a vendor, and I did guerrilla marketing. I would take a red eye to New York, make 7, 8 appointments over there, and next night I was back in the Bay Area. So you just have to see what's out there and keep your eyes and your ears open. Listen to your customer, what does he need, and then you can create.
But I think that it's an amazing insight to say, like for example, when I worked at Intel, there would be an India Food Day, that's contracted to Marriott, but every company contracts to Marriott. So if you go to the source to Marriott and say, I will do all this for you, now it gives you a nationwide reach instead of going to each other. But to have that insight to say to Marriott and say, you're taking my sauces? Okay, I'll give you 5-pound bags. Why sauces? I'll do the whole food for you. Like just keep climbing that. And also, when you grew that to a certain level, Sukhi, there is a lot of technology in food, right?
Oh, yes.
Because one of the things I learned in US especially, there's FDA regulations, and you have to, food has to be a certain, temperature, etc. Tell us a little bit about how much technology you had to learn to be able to, first of all, tell us how many, pounds of stuff you sell, how many packets, just give us a sense of the volume of what you sell.
Well, I can't tell you how many pounds of it we sell.
But like how many packets, like how many units you guys move in a year?
Gosh.
Like,
I can just tell you the gross number now.
yes, yeah. That's just
Yeah,
the
which
process.
is 120 million.
Okay,
dollars.
$120 million worth of food moved, in
Now.
the system. Now.
Not then.
Not then, not then. Dollars, 120 million dollars. Did I say pounds? Okay, whatever. Of stuff moved. But the thing is, I just want you to understand, when they cook, it's like literally huge amounts is being cooked and packaged. And when you cook, you have to cook in a certain temperature. Then you have to tell us a little bit about what you do.
You know, one of the bigger things I learned was that find a space out there which is not occupied and see, is there a need for it? So what I really found that over there, I mean, I had these sauces and everybody loved them. Every time anybody used them, they said, never go out of business, we love this. But there was hardly any movement. But then I realized that the American public didn't, even boiling water was cooking for them. They didn't want to cook. They wanted something they could heat up and eat. So I quickly transferred into refrigerated foods. Then we came across the barrier of, so if you do refrigerated foods, you can only go so far. It has a 21-day shelf life. Then I found out these other ways of cooking the food where we would get a 120-day shelf life, and we could go right across the country. So you keep coming up with these barriers, and you don't take no for an answer. You see, there is a way around it. And so that is one of the main things I found. The first time I went to Marriott with my stuff to get it approved so that I could sell to the whole country, they rejected it and they said, no, this does not meet our specifications. So I said, why? Oh, your spices have got a very high bacteria count. I said, I'm using the same vendor that you're using in your kitchens, and how can that not be? So they thought it was ready-to-eat stuff. So that was how they were ignorant of what we do. So I...
Is that a high what?
High bacteria count. So spices are very high in bacteria count. That's why they get bad. Yeah. So then I told them, this is not ready to eat. You are going to cook with it. So it took me about 6 months, and then I got approved. Then I went to all the food services. You have Bon Appetit, you had Compass, you had Guggenheimer, everywhere around, and I would just got them approved for all of them. And we started selling to everyone.
Right.
So one of the big lessons, again, I learned the first year, not knowing the American market, I was, in the Delhi, I used to have these customers come through, and when I was selling the sauces on my counter, this person who used to work in one of the companies on the street came and said, oh, do you know that you have to get FDA approval? I said, but why? I'm selling potato salad over here. Nobody asked for FDA approval. He says, no, if you go to other stores and you sell it on the shelf, you'll have to get FDA approval. So that was the whole process. I learned what to do, got FDA approvals. So every time you come across something, you learn and you move on. So that was the one process I learned, how to make shelf-stable items without adding preservatives. So again, you go and ask questions. The biggest thing is ask questions, ask questions. I wasn't from the food industry. I was a teacher back home in India. So those are the things that come in front of you. You need to take them and find a way around it. And you go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm lost again.
And the other thing I found that's really interesting is that, I mean, in the summary of this is, when there's a no, it doesn't end there.
No.
So it's sort of about why no, and just keep deeper and deeper into it. And the other thing that really was a great insight for me, when she decided to go to the customer, you go to the farmers markets, that's where the Whole Foods and the Costco's come to check out things and they pick things. If she has a deli, they wouldn't have come there. But the executives from these companies go to all farmers markets checking things out to see where they can pick stuff from. So it's like sometimes when you make that extra effort, you find new customers.
Farmers markets was a great source of income for us. It was our cash cow.
Yeah.
So when in the first year I decided my goal was to get into 100 Bay Area stores, I got into 110. But we did demos on the weekends and we started earning our living from there. But then my husband said, how long do you want us to do these demos in the stores? When are we going to make something out of this? And that made a big question in my mind. And so then we found these farmers markets. We would go in the morning and put a stall up and sell Indian food, and there you're tasting it out. So at the end, we were doing like 65 farmers markets a week. And can you have one farmers market, you have about 250 people coming through. So you can imagine the numbers that were tasting Indian food and learning all about it, because we would all talk there. I had other people doing them too.
So this is your feedback system constantly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
All day
yeah,
long.
yeah.
So I have to ask you, Suki, here her whole family actually is involved, and then her two daughters, son, everybody gave up everything and joined. And one of the things when I talk to them, they say, we had a lot of fights, but we all trusted our mother's instinct. If there is a conflict, if she said this will work, we had to just go with it, because she was always, her gut instinct was, even though they were technologists, they were, MBAs and all that stuff, but they said we had to trust her instinct and go with it. And the same instincts, okay, at some point you said, I'm done. I want an external investor to come in, which is very rare. It's very difficult for an entrepreneur to do, to bring somebody else in.
That's one of the later lessons you learn in life is, I didn't belong to the retail industry in the USA, so there's only so far I could go. The kids would go to do sales, they'd bring business, I would look at it, are we going to make money or not, and we'd do it. I create a process to put into place. And I'll tell you a little story which is very interesting. We wanted to, Costco asked us for appetizer box. So we gave them pakoras, but we were very stuck. We didn't know how to make every pakora equal in weight, because that's very important. You can't have one pakora that big and the other that small. So I was, on my way back from India, we had to stop in Jordan because we missed the next flight, and I went out and I saw this falafels being made, and this little gizmo they had, it's like a brass thing, and they pick up the falafel mixture and put it out there, and every falafel would come the same size. So I went back and I got my maintenance people. I said, hey, I want this. So I bought 2 of them from there. So he made me with plastic drain pipes. And that's how I'd had this conveyor going, and I'd have 10 women on every side, and they had, on the middle conveyor, they had the mixture coming through, and they would just pick it up with that and put it on the counter, and we would have equal pakoras. So those kind of things you learn as you go along, and you create your solutions for it.
Yeah. So, the next guest I want to invite is to continue on this conversation of, I asked you about technology. Technology plays an amazing role in whether it is increasing the shelf life, or whether it is making the pakoras the same weight, or so the small technology, big technology. And when we think of technology, we think of something very alien and AI and things like that, but really technology is a day-to-day stuff. So I want to invite our next speaker, who had one of the largest companies in technology today is Microsoft, and she leads Microsoft here. And she's a multifaceted person. So we will talk a little bit about technology and what's going to play a role in film, in food, everything. So with that, I want to invite Irina Ghosh to the stage. So Irina, I think you followed the technology route that we've all been alluded to, etc. So today, when we talk about technology, it's synonymous with artificial intelligence, right? And you are at the leading edge of that. And you've been hearing a lot of conversations from film to food, etc. How do you think of technology, and in what way can it serve solving a problem as opposed to raw technology per se?
Thank you so much, and absolutely a privilege to be here with all of you, Lakshmi. Really nice to kind of be with this entire audience here today. As I start today, I think one thing that I want to kind of point out is that how the world of AI has kindled the creator in all of us. When we are born, we are all creators in some form or shape, right? And then the left brain takes over at some point. We use it for doing reams and reams of data analytics, crunching numbers, etc., kind of a thing, while the likes of Kiran show us the wonderful world of what media, entertainment, and everything can do. I'll tell you a small story. Alongside my work, I also run a foundation for underprivileged girls. And to them, I teach what I know, which is digital literacy, how they can do things with computers. And every year, we do a computer contest. This year, we thought we'll make it a computer and a video contest, along with PowerPoint, how can you make videos. So there was this small girl, Farhana. She had inhibitions, constraints at home. So unlike a lot of other girls, she would not be able to attend a lot of these classes which the teachers and the coaches will do. She would not be able to operate in groups. So she was a group of a single person. We couldn't even monitor what was happening. We keep periodic checkpoints. We give the topics, how are they progressing. However, after 6 weeks, when everything had to be showcased, she kind of just unveiled her computer with a lot of suave and with a lot of dramatic theatrical efforts. And the videos she showed were things that none of us had seen. What had she done? Because she had access to nobody to tutor her from outside, she literally got curious to ask the right prompts, the right kind of questions. She was not even great in English. She was asking questions in Kannada, refining those questions, and she came out with a video and stunning images which were literally an aid with AI. So what happened is, what the tutor could not do for her, AI actually was her coach and a mentor which helped her do that. And she didn't stop there. Over a period of time, we monitored her, and over a period of time, first she had some 10,000 YouTube followers, 25, 50, and it was a proud moment when she put up a post saying that this is how I learned it. And there were so many girls who got inspired because she was that role model in the school.
So in this case, I mean, I just want to say it gave a certain equality of access.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
It absolutely gave an access. It kind of bridged the digital divide gap. And when you think about it, in the world of AI and entertainment, Kiran, one of the poignant scenes possibly in Lapata Ladies, which stuck with me, was that small chai shop where Manjumai is there and Phool is there.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of, that image stayed with me for a long time. So I was just thinking that had you not had that image, if somebody like me were to just think of it, if I've not seen it, do I have an ability to probably create it? I might not get it absolutely there, but if I have an imagination, I might get near there, possibly.
Yeah. So thinking about, I mean, I'd love for each of you to ask any questions you have of each other also, is that, in film, say, for example, one of the things, Kiran, if you remember a long time ago, we talked about, in films, the biggest hindrance is distribution. There's very few people who control it. And of course, YouTube and all have changed that a lot. But how does technology play a role in distribution? How can it open up doors to more people? Or even, I mean, if you think about food, it's filled with technology. So how do you think of technology as a tool, not just as an end in itself? So what are some of the unusual ways in which you see technology can be used in any one of these fields?
So I'll take the case of distribution because it's very interesting, because good movies are not just meant to be produced, it needs to be consumed by that last person to whom you really want to show it across. And also, like you were saying, that when you saw that movie, nobody was laughing, and you were thinking what made them not laugh. You will want them to see it the way it needs to be felt, the way you created it, right? So by the power of, say, again, I'll go to AI and technology, because what does it help you do today? So of course, I mean, it has bridged a lot of things towards voice dubbing, lip syncing, etc. But having said that, say, for example, Pushpa, when it was launched, the iconic dialogue of Thagedele, right? When he delivers it, if you kind of want it to be delivered in French, with that same level of power, swagger, it can be done.
Yeah.
Similarly, we stay in Karnataka, the land of all Yakshagana stories, everything put together. You'll want that folklore to transcend generations with that same level of ethos. You will want, say, Rajkumar's classics to have that same level of emotion. It might get diluted over a period of time, but what happens is that AI is able to actually go back, bring back a lot of those things and tie the threads together. And this entire concept of, say, a human in a loop also brings in the power that whatever is brought together, I put in the last mile to ensure that it is delivered the way I want it to be done, with my level of authenticity, with my levels of emotions, and what I felt was my creativity towards reaching the last mile. One more thing in distribution I really feel is the audience. So there is tons and tons of content available anywhere. But maybe I like a content which is like a quaint thing of a Bengali movie, Raincoat. Those suggestions might not come up. But if over a period of time my preferences are known, or similarly, if I like a food like what you're kind of doing, and if you want a recipe which needs to be followed for that particular food, for a person who's living in Greece versus somebody living in Bangalore, that can be generated with a lot of agility. It can be done so quickly that you can reach and go out in the distribution mode with a huge amount of fast endeavors.
So, Irina, if I asked you, what question would you have for someone like Kiran? What would it be? What would you like to ask her?
I actually had two questions. No, thank you for asking me that. The one that I had for you was that you kind of conceptualized the food industry in a way that you wanted it to go across to lots of people without the synthetic flavors, and you had a way that you were doing it. But as the world has been evolving, fusion, cultural ways that people are kind of coming together, and people really like to experiment. It's the next generation which really goes in for a lot of experimentation. Now, when you transcend these things, how do you think, say, anything to do with AI can have a role to play?
You know,
Don't have it.
food is evolving everywhere. Food in India is not what it was when I left. This has got all kinds of fusion stuff over here. I mean, you go into any mall and you'll find like Indian, Chinese, Indian this thing, Indian Thai, it goes on and on. So there also the same thing happens. You know, we are always doing innovation, and we will bring in local flavors into the food so that you can, like we are doing, people love samosas. And we find butter chicken is really not an Indian authentic dish. It is a mutation of chicken tikka masala, which was there. But now we are making butter chicken samosas because that's fusion and they're flying. So you keep changing stuff according to what is out there in the marketplace. And food is constantly evolving, and you have to keep in touch with the new trends. Samosas.
Lovely. And one for you, Kiran. You talked about ideating on a supernatural movie that you're kind of thinking. So when you're kind of thinking of that, what is it that comes to your mind? That is there something that you don't know, which you might still want to know, and bring across those elements in your movie and make it unique and different?
Actually, we were having this conversation before we came out here, Irina and I, and in our field, for instance, technology is constantly disrupting ways that we work in. We were discussing distribution, Lakshmi and I, because what's happened as a result of, digital technology slowly moving away from cinemas as film, but being far more easily accessible on digital platforms, and the kind of enforced sort of period of COVID, the theatrical distribution of cinema has changed hugely, and I think that's going to be, as an industry, one of our big challenges going forward, because people go to the cinema now, like she said, it's a choice economy. people want to go only if they're really very sure what's playing is what they want to watch. It's almost too much effort, even if you can afford it. So as an industry for us, there's lots of challenges. And AI, as you know, over the, with the strikes in America and, a lot of debate over the last few years, there is a lot of hesitation about letting AI into our processes, including, like she said, dubbing a film in another language in no time. What would take days and days and, people.
And hiring a lot of people also.
Hiring so many people to translate, to be in the studio, to kind of, here you just need that same actor's voice, and it's translation by AI, you'll have like absolute lip sync.
Yeah.
And now actually the actor can be lip synced to the new language.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not even like I'm speaking in Hindi, but you're hearing Chinese. I'm speaking Chinese. I feel like these are changes to embrace, and we have to sort of equip new generations of our, technicians, our artists to kind of find ways in which to use it and do it well. I'm not sure what your question was, I've forgotten, but
Your supernatural movie that you're making.
exactly. So actually, it's this film particularly because I'm trying to, again, imagine, it's a sort of a fantastical film in some ways. It's got folktale elements, it's horror elements, there are creatures, and it's also what AI is doing is enabling us to actually visualize what we are imagining in our heads and maybe push us that step further in our imagination as well. So it's going to be something that we use extensively in what we call previs of anything, like pre-visualization of scenes, in creating characters, and also even in just creating sort of the world around in which you shoot. Because a lot of what I want to shoot is possibly not possible. It's very hard to get to locations of a certain kind. So now what we've got with 3D volumes that we shoot in, a lot of it that is, of course, projected on those volumes is imagined on, on other platforms, on sort of AI platforms with other tools.
I want to end this on a very completely different question. Is that, one of the things we're talking in technology, all these things, human connections, human relationships really is at the core of everything, and even that is changing a lot. So, Kiran, in your case, you talked about your husband, your child, you're no longer together, but you're still raising the child, and you all live together, and you make films together still, and you get along really well. In your case, Suki, after almost 5 decades of being together, you lost your husband recently, and the children have their own things, etc. And I know your father lives with you, and you take care of that while you take care of your daughter also. I just want each of you to talk a little bit about the world has changed so much in relationships, in the way we relate to each other. Before it was like A and B together is C, and if that's not there, something terrible has happened. But now we are like multiple generations living together and, running around and, like many people raising kids together. Things have changed a lot. So tell me, for each of you, what's the thing that's about a relationship that holds true, it keeps you going? Whether it's your parents or children, it doesn't matter. What about relationships is the most sacred thing for you?
For me, it's been the most important part of my life. My parents, my son, the friends I've made, the people I get to work with. And our industry is hugely collaborative. You cannot make a film without a whole village. And that's part of the joy of making films, is that you make friends on every project. You get to collaborate with other artists who open up your mind to new ways of seeing and thinking, and And human beings are just incredible. Our capacity for, you know, empathy, our capacity for joy and hope is endless, honestly. And you, in a world where, you know, we are constantly being pitted against each other, I'm very fortunate to be in an industry which where we cannot work without each other, where we must work together. So people are all important. I think, like you said at the very beginning, investing in people should be, I think, the goal of every organization and every government. As you know, we run a non-profit called Pani Foundation, and in that actually our only goal, even though we work in agriculture and watershed management, our only real goal is human capital, building the human capital. Because once you build strong, confident, you know, forward-looking and inclusive human beings, you can solve any of the problems you come across. So I think, you know, AI we'll find a way to make AI useful to us and not necessarily to replace us, because, you know, human beings are too special to just be, you know, a number.
So how about you, Suki?
So I feel, you know, we come from a culture where relationships are so important. And it just, for me, it's so important. I had all my 3 children join the business on their own. I didn't ask them to come in. And I felt, please don't feel pressurized to come and join your parents. And they said, no, we want to be there. And they would, I mean, it is like when we believe in 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 1 really is not 2, it becomes 11. And then 1 more becomes 111. And then that's actually how we grew, because one at a time they joined, and then we just took off. But relationships for the Indian culture, I think, are the essence of our lives. And my husband passed away 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, but the whole family is always together. And in that, I think the modern technology really helps you in connection with all your relatives, the children, you're videoing. Where about, 30 years ago, when you had made a phone call to India, it would cost you 400 rupees per minute. Now it is, you're in touch with them, and it just has brought us closer. So that's modern technology has brought the families, to my mind, much closer than they have ever been.
Yeah. How about you?
Absolutely. And I think for me, all of us thrive and are driven by something like a purpose. And that purpose is towards doing something which is for the larger goal, touching some lives. It might be the lives of people right around us, larger part of life like the foundation that you run, or the storytellers and the connections that you create. And at one end, this joy, spark, and happiness that everybody thrives for comes only when you see and you are with people. Whether it's your family, your team, your organization, your surroundings, everything put together. So people often ask me, technology versus job, technology along with job. I just feel that it will forever be only an aid. Because at the end of the day, humans and connections and emotions is what keeps us living and thriving as a society.
Great. So as I wrap up, I just want to say that, I come from a world many decades ago where everything was black and white. At 20 you get married, at 25 you do this, and if this doesn't work, then it's a failure. World was so much black and white. But today we live in a world that allows us the opportunity to be in a gray world, actually, which is fantastic. And so I just want to end by saying that the biggest investment I think we all need to make is in making and keeping relationships. Because we get so busy, we run around, it's like, where is the next deal? I always joke that when I meet somebody, like, their eyes are already, they already said, this is a useless person, like, where is my next deal? And so I think if we just focus on building relationships, take the time every week to call somebody, to keep in touch with them, etc., I think everything else will fall in place. So we want to wrap up by saying the common thing, they all come from diverse fields, we are all from diverse fields. but the common thing that holds us all together is the relationships we make and keep. And hopefully that's the only way humanity is going to survive. Otherwise, we are toast. So thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
So
Ricky.
for that, Lakshmi, we have to thank you. You keep bringing us all together, and my last year has been amazing with you around and just meeting people and developing new relationships. Thank you.
So Kiran, my dream is that we have to make a movie about Suki, so we should talk about that. Online. Thank you so much for all your time. Thank you.
I'd like to hold you back. Lakshmi, everyone kindly take your seats. All the soulful ladies, I would say. Give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. It was very, very interesting. However, there is one or two questions. If you guys are okay with it, we'll take the questions. The time's up,
Yeah,
but
that's
most of them, this is live as well. But some people really wanted to ask the questions, so with your
Sure,
permission.
sure.
Yeah?
Ms. Ghosh, this is the question to you. I have a AI-powered oral healthcare startup. We have growth accelerator programs in UAE, but when it comes to India, Microsoft just gives Azure credits for us, and we exhausted it within no time. So what's the difference between UAE and us that we can't be like them in growth accelerator programs? And why don't such programs get created for Indian market? And why don't we get to do that startup accelerator programs? I want your thoughts and help us scale our AI-powered platform.
Sure. So we have something called Founders Hub, in which we really bring across all founders from diverse streams. Happy to connect with you offline, just see where you are in this entire journey. We help across not just with credits, but with architecture, designing ability, go-to-market abilities, etc. Please do write to me offline, and I'll surely. Sure, I'll look into it, surely.
Okay, all right. We just got the message from the Secretariat. The show on the other side is starting off. Sorry, we thought of 3 questions, but our event management team just gave an update that we'll have to cut it off. In the meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Give a big round of applause if you've enjoyed the session of all these wonderful. We'd like to acknowledge your presence. Kindly remain with us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together. Give a big round of applause to Kiran Rao. Let's put our hands together for Sukhi Singh. Really inspiring story. बड़ा अच्छा लगा आपकी बातें सुनकर. And ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Irina Ghosh, who wants to touch lives of many people, spreading the smiles the way she's smiling. And Kiran Rao, she has her own style of touching the lives of people and connecting all the dots. Lakshmi, I was so impressed the way you moderated this session. Just amazing. Put your hands together, give a big round. All 4 of you, let's have you together for a picture. We'll keep it behind and take it back again. Wow, that frame looks beautiful, huh? Let's make it look good. I'll also join in. Thank you so much. Request you all to kindly proceed towards the hall where we have the rewards and recognitions happening, and also we have the dinner. So request you to please proceed towards it. Kindly head towards plenary hall.